My name's Tyler Ashby, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Key Data. I'm very excited to be here with the team at Rev Research. And let's take a second to introduce ourselves. Ben, you want to get us started?
Yeah, for sure, Tyler. Thanks for having us. We love hanging out with Key Data as much as possible. We love everybody on your team over there. But yeah, I'm Ben Coleman, the founder of Rev Research. I've been in the property management space for probably just over 10 years. Had a property management company down in Mexico that we scaled, and have gotten out of the property management side and founded Rev Research really to give property managers time back and more control over their revenue, and have been lucky enough to hire two great people that are about to introduce themselves, and met Rebecca just over about a year or 14 months ago or so in Vegas, and she came over and started working for us then, and it was really how we've gotten to where we've gotten.
Fantastic. Rebecca, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm located here in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I help in with our day-to-day operations, working with our clients. Prior to working with Ben, I was a revenue manager for a fairly large company down here, had roughly about 350 to 400 properties, setting rates, working with owners, all that stuff. So it's definitely in my DNA to work in revenue management. So when this opportunity presented itself, it was really the next step. I really enjoy working with all of our clients that are in a lot of different markets and are all different shapes and sizes.
Wonderful. Rebecca and Kelley?
All right, thanks Tyler for having us. I'm Kelley. I joined Rev Research about 3-4 months ago, roughly, sometime in March. I can't remember exactly when. But I have a similar background to Rebecca. My past two positions have been with property management companies. And for I would say about 5 out of the 7 years that I've been in this industry, I've focused on revenue management and data analytics. So this opportunity with Ben and Rebecca has allowed me to do what I actually really like best, which is working with data and be able to use it to help other people strategize and hopefully make more money. So yeah, this is what's going on with me.
Very nice. Well, it's great to get to meet you. Let's spend a second and talk about kind of who Rev Research is and the services that you offer. Who wants to get us started?
Yeah, I'll get us started on that. I think where we differ from anybody else in the industry here is we've got 30 years combined experience, which is a lot. We've all operated as a revenue manager or been responsible to balance sheets for property management companies at scale for quite a while. So getting to combine 3 completely different personalities and the way we would tackle a data problem that has worked at scale has really aided our strategies to really not only help smaller companies that are growing, but also larger companies. Our strategies tend to work better the larger the portfolio size is. And I'll let Rebecca kind of handle kind of what we do on the account management side, and then Kelley can kind of handle how we organize and how we help clients make data-driven decisions.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest parts of revenue management that we don't really spend a lot of time talking about is not only executing the strategies, but how do we communicate those to homeowners? Because as we've seen a lot of changes in the last 3 years, homeowners are becoming more and more educated. There's more and more articles coming out in major news outlets about, what the economy is doing, what Airbnb is doing, all of these things. And homeowners are asking the tough questions. They want to know how their property is doing versus the market, how they're doing year over year. So that's really where I aid a lot of our clients in how to communicate with owners, the whys behind what we're doing, pulling benchmarking reports, showing them owner reports, explaining why their rates are the way that they are, also empowers our property managers to have trust with their owners. And I think that is really, really crucial, that it's not just we're throwing a rate out there and we're hoping it gets booked. We're making educated decisions. We have data to back up these decisions. Yeah, these rates may not be the same rates that you had last season. However, look at your occupancy. Look at what your neighbor down the street is doing, because they all like to do that and use that. But explain to them how to look at that, how to look at comp sets and things like that. So really spend a lot of time with the owner side. So property managers, if they're getting questions or they're getting pushback, being able to equip them to have those conversations that both sides, owners and property managers, feel like they're making the right decisions, and really giving that time back to those property managers, because those kind of questions can take a lot of time. They can become a research project. They can, it's, oh, that's just what we set the rates at. That's not how we like to take care of our homeowners. We like to go, this is why, this is what we're seeing. This is kind of the steps that we took. This is the strategy that we have. This is our plan for the next 6 months, the next year. And that's really, really strengthened a lot of our property managers to grow, because those owners are talking to their friends and saying, well, this is my, what my property manager is doing. This is how I got occupancy this summer. This is our plan for the fall. And all of a sudden, those skeptics that were down the street are now calling those property managers and saying, "Hey, I want to get on this plan, or I see what they're doing," and it's really, there's some organic growth happening, and it's, the property managers have that data at their fingertips. They know how to pull it quickly. They know how to have those conversations, and now they have the confidence to have them with potential new owners. They don't need to contact us. They know how to have those conversations, and that's spreading across their team as well. Their team is feeling more equipped to answer those questions, even from a guest. A guest asks why a rate is, different than last year, or this, that, or the other. Why that we're equipping their whole team to be able to understand and know what's going on.
So it sounds like not only, are you working hand in hand to help facilitate that revenue management strategy, but also teaching along the way. Is that kind of a part of the structure?
That's a huge part of what we do. I think that a lot of property managers have a lot of data at their fingertips. Even just on their key data dashboard, there's a lot of data there. And the biggest question we get a lot is, what do I do with it? How do I take this and make educated decisions? And what we like to do with our clients is break it down. We call it like bite-sized pieces. Okay, today we're going to focus on looking at your occupancy. Okay, let's look at the market occupancy. Let's look at your year-over-year occupancy, making it so that they feel like they understand it. And the growth that we've seen in some of our clients that have really taken those kind of coaching sessions, we like to call them, to heart, has just been incredible to see them really own it and really be able to, a few of them have said, we feel like we took our business back. We feel like we really understand the data. They had it all along. They've been key data subscribers for a year or 2 or 3, but they didn't know what those charts meant. They're like, they look really cool, but we don't know what that looks like in our day-to-day business. And so being able to show them, hey, this is when your occupancy goes up, that means you get more reservation fees. You get a higher mark on your cleans, like your margins, like this means more revenue for you. So let's that's why we want to drive occupancy. It's not about, just that's what we like to do. Like there's goals and there's purposes behind that. So I do think that a big part of that is helping people understand the data so that they can make the right decisions for their business. Because there is just so much out there in terms, especially when you start using a pricing tool and you have all this stuff and it's like, what do I do first? Where do I look first? And that's a big part of where we kind of help people create a structure, create systems, create a flow, to really be able to understand where to start. Because that is a big thing, is how do I start?
Sure. Hey, Ben, whenever you're working with a client, do you decide, or is it open to the customer? Are you going to work with multiple employees or teammates, or are you working at a certain level? Is it executive only, or are you working through multiple levels of employees?
It really is a case by case basis there. We've got some where we do just meet with the executives. We've got some where it is a very, very collaborative, and a lot of it depends on, portfolio size. Where you start getting reservation managers and you've got reservationists and, different people that need to be in those meetings. And so those are more collaborative. And then a lot of times we'll have a break off session with more of the executive, kind of the executive level. We have some that we meet with, kind of the executives on a monthly basis where we're meeting with, the kind of the full kind of, boots on the ground team on a biweekly basis. But really, I think the relationships that we have work best is kind of like what Rebecca said, that kind of take the little bite-sized pieces and kind of just dive in, because we do like to educate. We do like to educate teams of how to speak to homeowners, because when you get down to it, the real goal of what we're doing and with revenue management is not necessarily just making more money year over year. I think the way that you're really going to sustain that over the long term is you've got to have more bookable nights. You've got to have an increase to inventory, and the best way to increase your inventory is to decrease your churn. And so we really like to educate and really take our clients to really allow them to be the professional from a revenue side of things, not just from an operations side of things. And so it really just depends on how the team's set up, but we definitely like to coach people inside of the organization that are talking to the homeowners.
I think something that's really interesting and exciting about your team at Rev Research is your background. Revenue management is something that maybe we weren't talking about in the vacation rental space, 7 or 8 years ago. And you all come from the short-term rental space. Do you think that gives you a little bit of an edge? Like, you've walked in the shoes of the people that you're working with now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Go ahead. Kelley, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know that you could do this job. I think you could be successful, but it honestly takes being able to empathize or sympathize with the property management companies that we're working with, to be able to dig our way and help them dig their way out of problems. Because honestly, I have learned a lot through making mistakes or through trying to fix mistakes that have been made. And that's really kind of how I feel you master the whole thing, is sort of reverse engineering and trying to get your way out of it. And so we really apply a lot of those learning lessons to our regular client meetings, whether it's distribution or rates or just general system technology learning curve tips. But I mean, it's honestly huge. And the fact that Rebecca and I and Ben are familiar with multiple different property management systems, multiple pricing systems. We've all worked with key data. That's honestly a game changer, because you can get deeper with them and it becomes more of just we show you how to price your rates. It's more of, we're going to actually help you be successful with this entire strategy, what the whole thing looks like. So yeah, honestly, invaluable experience, I would say.
Yeah,
And you speak the same language, right? Like you understand a shared set of terminology. How does that, or anything else, Rebecca, that you wanted to say on the topic?
Oh, no, I think that we understand the day-to-day operations. For example, we had a client that just wanted to kind of really do almost a fire sale on our last minute discounts. And it was like, okay, well, do you have the cleaners to do that? And I was like, well, what? And I'm like, if we get all these reservations last minute, do you have the infrastructure to handle that? Oh, I didn't think about that. And it's like, we've sat in those seats where it's like we've shared office space with the people that have organized the cleaners, that have, we've heard, hey, we need more people here, or can your reservation staff handle that? Can they make this have these conversations? We've had to explain rates to owners or property managers that talk to the owners. So maybe some of it might be PTSD and some of it that we understand, kind of like Kelley said, when you make a mistake, if a rate gets entered wrong, like we know what that feels like when you get a booking that was kind of low and you have to explain it. Like it's heavy to us. We understand that revenue management really is the backbone of a lot of businesses. If you're not making money, you're not functioning, you're not having staff. So there is a very heavy side to what we do, and we understand that these businesses, like, we can't make mistakes. We have to have the right decisions, and we understand how important that is, and we don't take that lightly. We really do know that every client that we work for we're advocating for their business.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, what would you consider like an ideal client for you? Is it a customer that is just looking to hand over the reins, or someone that is in a bit of a mess and needs some immediate emergency room attention, or somewhere in the middle? What's your ideal customer?
Our ideal customer is somebody who wants to make data-driven decisions, who really wants to give up some control to gain more, understanding that they don't have time to spend the hours and hours to, number one, just start off, and number two, to learn and really make data-driven decisions. A client that wants to do that, somebody that's got a track record of growth as well. We really like to focus on not just homeowner retention, but helping with homeowner acquisition. And so from a portfolio size, we don't really kind of classify it that way. We really want to partner with our clients. We really want to be true partners and dive into the business. And, like you said, maybe they are in kind of in an emergency situation, and let's dig them out of the dirt there, get everything settled. And we really like to dive into, hey, how can we build margins into the business? How can we build more profitability into the business? How can we help you stay a season ahead of the market? And how can we then, not only that, organize your data, and then through that process, really giving the property manager, really giving that executive actually more control than they had when they were kind of just holding on to it and not being able to give it the full attention, is really who we enjoy working with the most.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be music to a lot of people's ears, Ben. Whenever you talk about helping a company to grow, say a little bit more about that. Not only of course, as you mentioned earlier, like, you don't want to just add properties to then lose a segment the following year, right? So retention is really important. I would imagine getting more out of the inventory you have is really important. But there's this growth aspect too that's very exciting in the business. How do you help people to attain new homeowners?
I'll let Rebecca handle that one. She's kind of, her and Kelley really run our projections, but really what I think the main thing that we do before we get into like kind of what reports we pull and how we actually kind of do it is in those sessions, in those meetings that we have, we just see such confidence coming from a revenue management standpoint, where they were timid, where they didn't really know how to kind of push back to a homeowner. All of a sudden, now that's kind of helped them retain homeowners. Now, all of a sudden, they have a confidence to really kind of stand up here as the professional, not only from an operational standpoint, but from a revenue management standpoint, from a return on their asset or return on their investment standpoint. And then Rebecca and Kelley will walk y'all through kind of what we do and how we coach and how we actually kind of walk through that process.
Yeah, I think a big one is we have a very interesting angle because we're not in their day-to-day. So we kind of have a different viewpoint a lot of times, where some properties may have some emotional tie, or some, they've had an owner for a long time. So there's a friendship base there. And we're just looking at the data. Like we don't have any of that kind of emotional side to that. So we can really pick out very quickly the properties that are doing very well and the ones that are struggling, and we can kind of talk about that in a little bit. But more focusing on those units that are doing well. Why are they doing well? Have we done a strategy. So then when we look at that and we ask, the client, is this your target? Are these the homes that you want to manage? Yes. Okay, well then these numbers are strong. Like, how do we connect with your marketing team and your owner outreach? We're using the owner reports, we're using the market data. Okay, you're ahead in this, and this, then helping them kind of execute a strategy for a specific area. I think it's also, again, just making sure that we know what their target growth is. Because we're giving a lot of them time back, it's, we have quite a few clients that have grown a lot, is because they're not worrying about revenue management. They're able to follow up with new owners. They're able to have those conversations, have them into their office, because the other really important things are being taken care of. And that's one of the biggest things that we hear is, hey, we got to meet with this owner. Hey, we got to talk to them. I was able to pull up kind of where we're at with this specific, whether it's a complex or a neighborhood, and show them where we are compared to the market. A lot of them, if they're with a different property management company, they're explaining kind of what their pain points are. They're able to kind of talk them through so there's a lot of that we help with, that's able to make sure that we're setting them up to win on that. So, Kelley.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting how you mention, what would you do with all of this this time that you have back? Because I know from a number of rental companies that I've worked in, revenue management is one of these things that is really hard to let go of, right? It feels like the most tangible piece of your business that if you're not paying close attention to it, even if you don't have really the chops to be the one doing it, it can all fall apart, right? It feels very fragile. And so once you've got confidence in your strategy, you've all of a sudden got an opportunity to go out and work in other areas of your business that you might have neglected, whether that's homeowner acquisition or something operationally or sales. And so I'm interested to hear, whenever you have those conversations with maybe someone at an executive level and they're over the hump, how does their demeanor change? Are they feeling like, wow, we're more confident, we've got a better handle on how the business is going? Is that something that you experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, in the vacation rental world, it's very, very rare that you find someone who only wears the hat of revenue manager. It's very rare. You're wearing a lot of different hats, especially for smaller companies. You're helping with operations, you're helping with distribution, you're helping with reservations, your time is getting split all across the board. I know for me personally, it was like, yes, that was my main goal, but I had other things that I was also responsible for. So for us, our main goal, our only job is to focus on revenue management. So we have a very direct focus where we can kind of be very efficient. And so I do think that helps when we're talking to teams that get time back, that feel like they know they can focus on other things because the revenue management is being taken care of, that they can grow, they can work with their staff, they can, grow their business in other ways because that crucial point is being taken care of, that nobody has kind of left it by this wayside. We always joke, hey, that list of projects that you're always going to get to when it's slower, that list, they actually get to that list. They actually get to do those things that help their team really be able to grow. And we've had a lot of conversations, especially after people have been with us for about 6 months. We really start to see their demeanor change in terms of they're focusing on what they're passionate about too. You know, some of them are very passionate about growing their business. Some are passionate about, you know, growing their team. Some of them, you know, each one of them has a passion, but it's like they didn't get to do that because they had to worry about other things. So it's really been cool to kind of see how different teams kind of blossom in that.
Yeah, I love that. Kelley, what are you hearing from the partners that you're working with? Kind of once you get over, I'm sure there's a certain confidence hurdle that you have to get past with a new client until they start to feel confident in the strategies that you've built together. What are you hearing from your partners?
Honestly, I mean, very similar to what Rebecca said. I think after my experiences, really what this is a partnership at the end of the day, us with the clients, us with you. I mean, all of this is really just a collaborative effort to do something better than we could otherwise do on our own. And in my past experiences, you're trying to do everything as a revenue manager, not just the rates, but you're looking at how are your listings presented? How are you working with operations? You're getting hit with the owner emails and all that from the owner's team. You're hitting with marketing and photography and all that kind of stuff. And so I felt like you're giving everything 70 to 80%. And with this type of partnership, you can focus on the things that you're good at, you know, the more like intimate operations type of thing. And we're doing, like, as Rebecca said, the actual revenue strategy. And a lot of what I spent time on, I don't want to say wasted time, I had to spend time on it, was digging my way out of problems. Like I mentioned before, if there's an issue with distribution or rates or software or just things that take a while to understand why they happened and fix them. And so because we've been through that, we're not only saving clients time with general pricing and execution of rates and all that kind of stuff, but also just the overall, like onboarding. I mean, that's a time consuming process that I think it really is where things can break if we don't do it correctly. So it's not just picking them up where they're doing well and getting them better. Sometimes it's about building them up depending on what point they're at. So I would say it varies depending on the client and depending on where they're at in terms of that learning curve. Ideally, we want everybody to be kind of at the baseline understanding of what we're doing. I think Rebecca said this earlier, so that as we're making changes, we don't have to sound like a broken record. They know what we're going to say when there's an issue, and they're able to communicate that. So it's really just getting them to understand. And once they understand, and once they start to see that there's results, that's when I think we really get them to trust us. So that takes some time. But I think just being able to lean on somebody who understands it, gets it, and has been through it and can be an advocate on your behalf is really something that they're thankful for, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, at Key Data, we talk a lot about the importance of quality data, right? Like good data in, good data out, this sort of thing. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about some of the reporting or tools that you use to help you do your job? What would you say is really important, knowing that, you know, you're meeting a partner where they're at today, right? They may have just made a software change, or perhaps they've grown really quickly, and so they don't have a ton of historical data. What are some of the tools and pieces and parts that you use to help make informed decisions whenever you're developing your strategy?
I'll take that one. Yeah, honestly, I would say for me at least, the most heavily used report is a pickup report, and whether that's looking at occupancy change or nights booked or just revenue, whatever it is. I think that's helpful with context, obviously, if you're looking at it week over week or month over month. But being able to show clients, this week we made these changes, and then next week when we look at pickup, did we see a spike? What did that look like last year? But then comparing that to the market, that's really the biggest thing I would say. So doing the homework and getting your baselines or your targets set up, whether that's your own historical data, or compared to a market projection or some combination of the two. But if we're looking at that and we know each month and each year, quarter, whatever, what we want to achieve, then every week or 2 weeks when we're looking at that pickup, we can kind of see where we're at compared to those different benchmarks. And we focus really heavily on the lead time. So we bring time back into this whole equation so that as we're looking at where certain months or periods of time are from an occupancy or a revenue standpoint, we can determine whether or not specific properties should be booking or should not be booking, depending on when their traditional lead time is. And of course, that's based on historical data, so it can change, but it at least gives us kind of a guideline. I want to call it a schedule, but kind of a checkpoint so that we can say, okay, this is where we're at for these units for June. They really need to be higher. So we're going to execute this price strategy, check in on them next week, but then it's not just looking at the next 30 or 60 days. There may be some units in September that booked primarily right now. So it's just giving us kind of an idea of which units to focus on and which ones to prioritize from a strategy perspective. And then we use key data, honestly, to set up like focus groups, like a struggling unit group based off of that. So another layer is when we look at that pickup report the next week or month or whenever it is, we can focus in on how those specific units are doing. Or even the ones that are doing really well. If we actually raised rates, which is a fun thing to get to do sometimes, then we can actually look at those too. So it kind of just breaks it down and gives us a little bit more of a, I would say, streamlined approach. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but yeah, pickup report and just, yeah, I don't know. I think that one is definitely the most important to me. Rebecca or Ben, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think of revenue management as kind of like a feedback loop, right? So you can price something however you want, but that doesn't mean someone's going to book it, right? So if you're not getting the market feedback through a booking, then it's hard to know if I was right or if I was wrong.
Yep.
And this is where I think people often find a challenge in thinking further in advance. And what's interesting about vacation rentals as we compare it to maybe hotels, right, is that people make their plans way in advance, some people, right? And then there's a segment of people that make plans really, really short term. Whenever you're coming up with a rate strategy for next year or a few seasons ahead, what are some of the ways that you kind of you get to that best estimate without the feedback yet?
So, I mean, that's hard. And it's sort of a similar conversation to, do you do a rolling budget? Do you change those baselines? I would say for us, the way that we approach this, we would want to kind of be as accurate as possible. So without having the market data, we're looking at like when, for each arrival month, when last year did the majority of reservations come in, and then looking at that for each individual property and kind of breaking them down into groups there. So for January, the properties that booked mostly 30 to 60 days, and then 90 to 120, so that we know that. And then as we move forward, if we're looking at where the lead time was for the first quarter last year, and then we see that this year it's dropped in half, we obviously want to take that into perspective for the rest of the year, because this is probably the most accurate indication of what's going to happen. But with that being said, it's just one period of time. So it's kind of looking at both, and it's really just giving us a checkpoint, like I said earlier, as of when we need to kind of not necessarily flinch, but start to pay attention. Because you obviously, with all these different portfolios, or with a portfolio that is 400 or 500 properties, you can't every single month know which properties you need to be looking at. I mean, you can look at them from an occupancy perspective, but at that point, the damage may already be done. So we're trying to take a more proactive approach with this, and bring that data in, the historical data, as much as we can. But to your point, without the market data, it really is something that we kind of have to continuously monitor and make educated guesses. I guess like the most educated decisions we can make without completely feeling like we're guessing, which is a lot of this job. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very fair of you to say it. And also, I think we've all kind of felt that, right? Like, Um, I want to dig a little bit deeper in on maybe like the historical data or market level data, because let's say I'm a new customer of yours and I'm like, there's this neighborhood and I love this neighborhood and I think everybody's making the most money in this neighborhood, but I don't have a house in this neighborhood, so I know I would be great there, but I don't really know where to start. What are some strategies that I could use to kind of make sure that I don't mess it up with the first one that I get in this brand new segment that I'm working in?
I think that depends if you had the market data for that area. Like if in key data you already had that market. I mean, I look at paid occupancy and ADR kind of for any market, but if you're looking at a new market, even if you don't have properties in it, I think you can kind of see from those two different graphs what the potential is, and possibly if that area has been way overpriced in the past or way underpriced, because you go on AirDNA and see basically like a calendar occupancy, and it's going to look like you could make a ton of money. In reality, because we're kind of scraping rates, we don't really necessarily know. So we're making the best guess. But with that data in key data, we can kind of say like, this is truly the paid occupancy, which we can kind of figure out how many nights that is, kind of figure out what the revenue is, and kind of walk them through it like that. And of course, we could give them strategies as far as like, for these months, the market was way overpriced, the occupancy could have been a lot higher, and so on and so forth. But that's what I would do. If I didn't have that data in key data, I would use a tool like Wheelhouse. If I had to, I could use AirDNA, but try to at least educate owners and property management companies about that, not tell them not to use it, but just be mindful of what that data actually represents, and knowing what it really means. So.
Yeah, I think that there can sometimes be a lot of noise in the space. What are some of like the most interesting things that you see that people are just so sure is going to net a positive result, and you're like, man, that is so flawed. We've got to stop looking at this thing this way. Is there anything that you see when you come in that you're always like, oh, there it is again, in the space?
Feelings.
What's that?
Feelings. I
Feelings.
feel like we should be rates should be this. That is a huge, huge, huge obstacle. It's not data-driven decisions. Yes, you could be a luxury brand in your market. That term luxury brand has been used a lot in terms of what is the definition of luxury. Yes, there are some homes that are, have all these crazy amenities, have all, can sleep a lot of people, and they do deserve a higher price. But as we've seen in a lot of markets, supply has just exploded. And what you felt like 2 years ago was a good rate may not be the right rate right now. And that's really, really hard for owners and for property managers to, well, I feel like my summer rate, because summer is their peak season, should be this. And the market data is telling us that's not close. And that's really tough to kind of get to a place where everybody wins, because there are owner expectations and there's budgets to be had. And if budgets are made off of those numbers, then we've got to make up those numbers somewhere else if we're not going to get them. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that really, really stunts people's growth financially and just by inventory is operating out of feelings and not operating out of what the data is telling us. And that's just been a game changer when people are more open to, okay, the data is not lying. Especially when you're looking at true data, not scrape data, true data is telling you this, and blatantly making decisions that are against that and then wondering why your occupancy is where it is, it's very hard for us to kind of go, we've been trying to tell you for the last 6 months that we're overpriced. Now we're within the month and this is the month to make all of your money, and we're having to discount, and we're having to change length of stay, and we're having to kind of do all these tricks and flips and all pull all the levers, push all the buttons to get occupancy, when really we could have set this property up to win 6 months ago when we saw the market shifting, when we saw things changing, and the data was there. That's really been a game changer, and I think that's a big thing this summer. Who's winning and who's not is the ones that were more apt to make changes earlier than the ones that waited to the last minute because they felt like they knew what rates should be, and the market didn't support that.
Yeah, I think that this is a really great point that you're making, Rebecca. I know I've been guilty of it, as I'm sure a lot of people that will hear this have been guilty of. Either, well, I know historically that, or, I've had this property for 6 years or whatever. We're in a very different, 2023 is not the same as 2022 or 2021. And also the market in general is very different. And so, Ben, can you tell me, like, having been in this business a long time, what are some of the differences that you're seeing kind of in our industry, in these markets, that made you think like, yeah, we need a Rev Research team. Like this is a good idea because of these conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I think that COVID really kind of shifted the conversation from rates to revenue management. And not to say that, you couldn't find a bad revenue manager back then, in 2020, 2021, 2022, but it really was a funny shift for me to see in the industry of something that, with where I got into property management, we were, running 50 units off Excel. We didn't even know that there was an industry. But for some reason, I just kind of got obsessed, and Tyler, you kind of said it, to kind of growing horizontally or growing vertically. I told my partner, I want to grow vertically. You grow as horizontally. And so I kind of grew up just running my head against the same revenue management wall over and over and over and just figuring it out. And just as I was kind of doing consulting before COVID and during COVID, just seeing the kind of the light bulb go off that this is truly the guts and the backbone of our business has been an interesting thing to see happen. Y'all at Key Data, y'all spearheaded wheelhouse pricing tools that have spearheaded this conversation and kind of put revenue management to the forefront, which is great. And now it's kind of like, well, now what? It's like, now we're up here. So what are we going to talk about? How are we going to talk about data? What data do we need? And to see the conversations grow and get deeper has been great to watch. But I think when you come down to it, where Rev Research feels a need is when it comes back to time. Not only the time, but then also the expertise of 30 years revenue management experience here of looking at data, of actually being responsible to budgets and understanding. And so from a time and an execution standpoint, we train multiple teams how to organize portfolios, how to move through them efficiently and effectively. And it takes time, and it takes years and years and years to develop any skill. And, I don't think revenue management's just a skill, because you've got an art form to it too. So you're kind of combining both sides of the brain there. And it takes a long time to be able to not only kind of just figure out what you're doing, but then to trust those kind of gut decisions and those kind of historic decisions that you've made that work, that you can rely on, takes a lot of time to develop. And we like to come in and kind of speed that process up.
So if I'm kind of, feeling like I need help, but also a little embarrassed that I don't have it quite figured out yet. And, should I feel embarrassed about that? Or is this a good opportunity for a team like yours to step in and help to guide me?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that we tell people right off the bat is we are not here to judge you. we all of us had to figure this out. Unfortunately, there is not a vacation rental management, revenue management class. We all had to figure it out ourselves, from watching webinars, looking things up, taking ideas from the hotel industry. We all started somewhere, whether we had someone else kind of teaching us or we figured it out ourselves. And I think that's something that when we started Rev Research was something we're so passionate about, is there isn't a lot of resources out there for people to have the one-on-one. Conferences are great, webinars are great, but you walk away with a lot of, like today, a lot of really general topics. And it's like, okay, that's great, but how does that pertain to me and my business? How do I take what they just said about lead time? How do I even find that? How do I do that? And that's where we really are passionate about, because we get to give back. I always say I want to find the person who's sitting in my seat 5 years ago and say, let me show you. Let me save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, maybe some tears, to kind of figure this out. And that's why we might ask hard questions about your strategies. It's not because we think they're right or wrong. We just want to understand your thinking. We just want to understand your market. We want to understand your homeowners. And a lot of it is, well, we just do it, questions we get, well, we just do that because we've always done that. Okay, well, what if we take that and kind of go this route with it? Oh, save you a lot of time. You might make more money. So that's where we kind of bring that really outside perspective, that we enjoy. People, the best clients are the ones that say, hey, I just want to help. Like, I just want help. And it's not, like Kelley has said, it's a partnership. We're coming alongside of you. We're not trying to take over your business. We don't want to be on that side of property management side. We've been there. We did that. We just want to kind of help guide them and be a sounding board. Hey, I'm seeing this. I pulled this report. I'm looking at this. Do you see this too? I mean, internally we do that a lot. Hey, look at this. Look at what this market is doing. Hey, okay. Well, hey, what if you try looking at this KPI? Look at this as of date. It's a collaboration, and I think that is, as a single revenue management manager in a company, can be very lonely. You can't go down the hallway and ask the marketing team to look at a key data graph. Yeah, they might humor you and look at it, but they don't know what the actionable steps are. Where our team can look through and talk about, yes, that you're right. Your gut is telling you the right thing. Go with that. Make those changes. Let's kind of move this way. So I do think that it may be hard for some people to ask for help at first, but we're here just to help. We're not here to judge. We're not here to question. Or we will ask questions, but it's not why did you do that? That was a bad move. We're never going to say that. Okay, well, that was an interesting choice. Let's maybe try this. But I think that
I think that this is interesting what you're talking about, Rebecca, because I mean, I've heard this in the space a lot, where people can feel like they've got imposter syndrome a little bit, or they feel very lonely in the work that they're doing. And this is not just in revenue management. I know at GM or executive level, sometimes having a partner that, especially if you're in a really competitive market, can be super beneficial. Do you sometimes have customers that you can tell are thankful just to have somebody to talk to really openly and honestly about what they're experiencing in their business?
Absolutely. I mean, we joke that I'm going to go back to school and get my psychology degree, because, like you said, especially when you get to that top level, you can't call your competitor down the street and say, "Are you having a hard time with this? Are you seeing this? you can't. And sometimes as certain staff members grow in the company, you can't have those conversations with your staff that you oversee. And a lot of our clients have become good friends because we are in the trenches with them. We are in their day-to-day hard decisions. We celebrate the wins with them. Great, like, look at us, we crushed this goal, or hey, you added these properties. You know, our clients text us a lot of times not about work stuff. It's about, you know, personal things. We celebrate those moments in their life. Because we all sat in those lonely seats before. We all sat in revenue management. You're responsible for, could be $100 million in assets, you know, homes that's a heavy weight to carry. If you mess up peak season, you
Yeah.
mess up a lot. It's not just, you know, oops, I made a mistake. We'll get it next time. You may not have a business. You may not have owners. There is a lot of responsibility, and I do think that as an industry, we're getting better at kind of creating community, finding those people that are kind of in this similar space. It's definitely come a long way, I would say, in the last, you know, 5 years than it was previously. But I do think that there is strength in numbers.
Let's end with something a little fun, I think, and also with some contact information and that sort of thing. So first off, tell me a funny story about this summer, and we can it can be true or not true, but something that's made you laugh about this summer so far. It looks like Ben's got something. I think Ben's got something.
Ben always has something.
I don't know.
Have you felt like, hey Ben, have you felt like this summer has been the hardest summer ever, or it's just another summer?
Oh, I think from a market standpoint, it's definitely not just another summer. It's been very odd to me. I think the way it's looking, it's almost looking like in the Panhandle that June may outperform July, which I'm not sure. You know, going back to what I feel, I don't know if I've ever felt that before. It's been a year of kind of booking windows shrinking, and I think that's, you know, you get a lot to do with that, with an increase of supply, and also two of us really, you know, holding rates high for a long time, and you know, all of a sudden guests are starting to learn that if they wait, and you know, if they wait, they're going to save money. It's definitely, this summer is definitely going. I'm looking forward to seeing how July is going to finish up. If it actually kind of gets back to where it kind of got last year, I'll be shocked. But then it'll be interesting after that to kind of look back and then kind of see how shoulder seasons look. I think we're going to find that further out pricing is going to get more and more important, and being at realistic, profitable ADRs further out is going to become more and more important as we kind of move and kind of normalize into not only a softer demand or a little bit softening of demand, but also the increase of supply. And I think that the proactive property managers can have a very good opportunity to see large scale growth internally.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Rebecca, tell people how they can get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, you can go to our website, revenresearch.com, and we've got a contact us form that you can fill out. We're also on LinkedIn, Reven Research. You can email us. My email is Rebecca at Reven Research, Ben at Reven Research, or Kelley at Reven Research. We're pretty easy to get a hold of, but our website's probably the quickest way to get us set up a call to kind of talk about how we can help.